Welcome to Women in B2B Marketing, a show where CMOs, VPs of marketing, and all strong women leaders in B2B discuss their top tactics, strategies, and tips for building high-performing teams, leveraging trends, and ultimately rocking their marketing careers. Made by and for women, insightful for all. I'm your host and 15-year B2B marketer, Jane Serra. Let's dive in. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Women in B2B Marketing. I'm so excited to have my friends here today, Gwen Lafage. We've been trying to get this for months, but schedules, it's been so hard, and she's in high demand, everybody. Gwen Lafage, who is the VP of Brand and Content at Sinch. And we are going to dive into all things brand from the queen herself of brand. I'm so excited to unpack. Welcome to the show, Gwen.
Thanks, Jane. Such a nice introduction. Super excited to be on this show as well. Love what you're doing and that you're featuring women. I think we need more women voices, so yay.
Yes, seriously. More women on mics and stages. That's my mantra.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think what I like to start out with is talking about how you got into the lovely world of B2B marketing, what got you into specifically brand and where you are today.
Yeah, so I actually started my career in creative agencies. Yeah, more or less. Let's say it was in creative agency. I did an internship when I was still a student or in college, right, at a creative agency in France. And for the first maybe 10 plus years of my career, I was in agencies and working with a lot of consumer brands like Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble and like a lot of really big, strong brands. I moved to Silicon Valley and started working at the creative agency, which was B2B for tech companies. And that's how I started in B2B a few years ago. But it all started with the desire to work in an agency, in a creative agency, without being a designer myself. I always wanted to do that from pretty young age when I was in college.
Yeah. From the creative side, what aspect did you focus on back in the agency days when you were working on like Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble? What side were you on? What were you working on? The strategy, the vision?
So I started as the project manager. So I was like an account manager, right? I had a set of clients. I would like collaborate with them, get project happen. I think from the start, like I really admire ads and like campaign or creative that could really move you and tell a story with an image and a slogan, right? Like in a very short storytelling and the power of that and like how it could move people and create an emotional connection. So I think the kind of creative side was there from the start. That's what I wanted to be close to. And the storytelling and like creating emotion with the words and the images. So from the beginning, that's what I wanted to do. And then I started I will age myself, but in what we called below the line agencies. So it was like, I was doing direct mail. I think my first agency jobs, or some of them, were like in the direct mail piece. We would do like beautiful packages with the product inside, the consumer product, and we'll send samples like I did cat food. I remember that.
I wasn't expecting that from beautiful packaging for cat food.
At the time, and I guess like advertising and these brands had a lot of money at the time. And so we would do amazing several days photo shoot for a direct mail for cat food. And the boxes will open and we will work with models and model cats. And
I love that.
That was just so different. And that was some of the first stuff I did.
Who would you send those to out of curiosity, like the beautiful packaging and presentation of the cat food? Who was that to? Like store owners or bigger?
No, it was like consumer. Like we will have database of, we also had, when I did Procter & Gamble, we had like a magazine, like a physical magazine. That was also, then we did it online, but we had where you had like tips and tricks on like how to wash your carpet and like how to get rid of a wine stain on your sofa, like that type of stuff, and like the well-being of the housewife, right? Like it was, it was a lot of that stuff, all sponsored by like Procter and Gamble, and it was content marketing from the start. And it started with like typical magazines, and then we did like an online version, and like a lot of this became digital. But I guess I started before kind of digital. So it was quite interesting. And we will work together or collaborate with the pure ad agency, and they will do the beautiful films. And then we do the activation, like from the film, how do you get that out into a direct mail piece and into a digital campaign and into, I don't know, a quiz on the website and that type of stuff. So that's how I started in consumer, and then many years later, arrive in Silicon Valley.
Interesting.
And
So cool. There's so many things I want to double click on, right? Like the quizzes and like driving people with the activation to the site for quizzes. That was like original data capturing, right? Like zero party data, first party data, like them coming to your site and collecting more. Yeah. So interesting.
And registering for the magazines, right? And then that's when you could also get some samples. And this magazine had coupons that like you could take with you to the store. And it was all kind of consumer stuff that is still happening, I think now, but way more digital today, obviously. But it was cool. And then the editorial of the magazine and all that type of stuff was super interesting. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So interesting. I feel like all of these things have existed, right? Like content marketing and the zero party data, like all of this existed. It was just like in different forms 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? And then it's just evolved, and now we have new terms for everything.
No, exactly. And I think that's the thing we forget, like that before digital was everything, because it's especially in B2B, it became, and B2B forget that there was marketing before them, right? B2B software. It's like there was marketing before, and before everything was digital. And they was like all of those tactics and ways of thinking were there. It's just that part of it we ruined ourselves with like marketing automation and like all the tools. I think like we make it worse, and then realize after that, oh wait, there was brands before that were actually trying to build a connection with the audience. Like not everything was about the automation and receiving 10 emails after you download an ebook, right? Like I think it was about this magazine that people were happy to receive. And it was about those kind of beautiful creative that people will open a box and be like, oh, it's amazing, how beautiful it is. And so I think like this mindset of influencing the buying process and like driving people to buy was there. It's just that we went a little bit away, and I feel like we're coming back to it more and more. So
I totally sense that too. Like brand it's coming back into its heyday, and the human connection that was missing is coming back. And we now accept that not everything is measurable and trackable. So let's focus on the relationships because they work. How did you take all of this, like that you were working on the B2C and CPG side, and translate it into B2B? If you could answer from two different perspectives, right? Like when you were interviewing, how did you get into that role? And then how did you actually make the transition yourself?
There was like a move to the US initially to do something else. At that time, I was like, no more marketing ever. Don't want to do marketing. I'm done with it. I'm so tired of like agencies. I don't want to do that anymore. I moved to the US, to San Francisco, started completely something else. And then after a while, had a baby. And then after a while, realized actually, I need to go back to a proper job. Not that I started a gallery, like an art gallery. So still, it was a job, but it was just not, it was, a kind of passion project. And so I realized I need to go back and go back to what I know what to do, which is working for agencies. And so I found a job in a B2B tech agency. So it was the same kind of like account management, new business development type of role. In a small boutique B2B tech agency. And I think we connected, they gave me a chance. I don't exactly know. I think it's right now the market is so hard that people that have done exactly the same thing before. And I think they're missing taking a chance on opening up to people that might have a different point of view and have done something a bit different that can bring a different perspective. And I think when at that time, it was probably easier. And so I didn't have to have done exactly that. And they didn't really care that I had work in B2B or not, which I guess I was lucky because I think right now it's tough.
They saw your transferable skills. I wonder if that's going to have a comeback too, the way that all of these other things and focus on brand and relationship are coming back now. Because I just listened to the first episode of Wednesday Women's podcast, The Ripple. Right. You should check it out. I think it was with Mary Shea, but she was talking about the same thing where she got into tech. She was a teacher and then a car salesman. And then she went from car sales into tech, B2B tech. Right. And now she's super successful, right? It's just so cool. But somebody saw her, she sold them a car. Right. And that's how she got into that. So like seeing those transferable skills, you're right. I feel like nowadays everyone just wants you to do exactly what they're looking to do next. And we don't want to do things again and again as humans.
Exactly. And it's exactly to the point of even within B2B tech, we had someone that I worked at our competitor. So they like knew the industry better. And I'm like, yeah. And I know even when we are recruiting at Sinch, right? Like it's just, there's a comfort to recruiting someone that have done this before and that will not have the learning curve of learning the industry and the products if they've done exactly the same thing. But I think it's also a loss for companies to like not try to, we think short term. Like I think we think so much short term that we're like, in the short term, it will go faster to onboard and they will know a lot more to start with. But longer term might not have been the best person for the job. And I think I got lucky like twice. Once when I like started in B2B instead of B2C. And then when I went from agency to in-house, again, I had never been in-house and someone took a chance on me and saying like, hey, she's working at an agency. She worked with a lot of tech companies. Even if she hasn't been in-house, I can see the potential. I'm going to bring her. And like right now, I feel like will be, and even before, I think that has been the hard move. I've had, even when I was on the consumer side, I've tried a couple of times to go in-house and when you only have agency experience, I'm like, until someone give me that chance, it will not change. So I think so I made that second move 3.5 years ago. So not that long ago, the in-house.
Did you go from agency, like B2B agency to Sinch?
Yes.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah. So
obviously it transfers from agency to in-house.
It did work out quite well, right? Like I think, I did. Like I moved from Silicon Valley to Stockholm to open the office of a creative agency. So I like starting an office there and built the office, recruited people, worked with a lot of like tech companies, startups in Stockholm. And then one of the company I was trying to get as a client had this job out. And then I had been in touch with them. I had met them and pitched them on some project that I didn't win. The CMO had seen me in his inbox trying to sell him a lot of stuff. And then one day I was like, actually, I'm not selling you anything except myself. Would you want me in your team? That works. So he was the one to give me a chance. He's still my CMO today, John, our CMO at Sinch. Yeah.
Wow. So see, relationships and putting a chance and putting yourself out there. I love that.
Exactly.
So cool. To me, if there's somebody that if I'm hiring for my team and I see someone from an agency, that's a plus to me because you've worked with so many different brands. You've seen so many different like stories and examples that you can then apply. That's a gold mine for me as a marketer in-house.
I think so too. And I think there's also this capability to like context switching.
Yes.
And I think in-house, it's different because it's all about one company and one brand, but it's also so much context switching. I see in like the different task and project I'm involved in, like I can go from one thing to another and one meeting to another with a lot of switching needed.
Yes, critical in marketing.
Yeah, exactly. And the capacity, I think, to like work under pressure too, because agencies is pretty stressful. So I think there's a lot of skills that you could use from agencies for sure.
Yeah, so true. And I know we were talking about brand having its comeback, right? And I feel like I see it a lot more on LinkedIn than I used to the past 10 years. It was always about numbers and pipeline and MQLs prior, right? Now MQLs are dead, but pipeline, everything like that, lead gen. But now I see brand a lot more, probably because I also curate my feed. So I want to see that. What matters to you heading up brand at Sinch? What's in your purview and what are you looking at? And how do you actually measure success as a leader of brand?
So in my scope today, maybe I start there because that gives a better context. I oversee some of the designers, right? So the creative team. I have a campaign or brand campaign team and a multimedia content team, and then some kind of content marketers, project managers. So these are like the part that we play in. So one of it is like everything related to leadership. And and we do social, but I think like social to me is organic social is like a distribution channel in a way, right?
Yeah.
Even if you need to create the content, so the content team or multimedia team will create a lot for the social channel. Brand campaign, it's called like now either performance branding or brand gen. And I like those.
Oh, wow. Brand gen. I haven't heard that.
Brand gen.
I like it.
In the agency I was with before called Skona, I think they coined that term brand gen and it stayed with me.
I love
because it was so hard to sell a huge brand campaign to a CMO. You could sell them a brand gen, which is like the combination of brand and demand gen all in one campaign, and what we will call today integrated marketing. And it's how a campaign needs to go from awareness to the end of capturing some interest. So I think it's not just awareness and it's not just the demand gen part. It's like how you bring them together. So I like kind of brand gen or performance branding. And to me, they both say the same thing in the sense of it's not just about those pretty photos and the pretty creative. It's also how you can measure it and how it performs, and it's driving business. And so I think that's a big part of what the team does. So my team does those like larger campaign and a lot of content around leadership to customer stories. Yeah.
Love that. Where do you begin? Like when you're creating with your team new campaigns, brand gen, I'm going to use it all the time now. I love it. But new campaigns, are you starting with customer stories or things that you hear? Like where do you start? And then how do you track success? What are your goals that you're measuring against?
Yeah. So I think it depends of like the maturity of the business and what are the business goals, right? What are the business goals and marketing goals overall? And so I'll take an example right now of two different types of campaign that we've worked on at Sinch. So the first one in kind of H1, we worked on a big piece of leadership, so like a survey report to get our own kind of data and build a brand campaign around that. So within the campaign, you have the content and the survey data and then an assessment quiz as part of it. And then we do ads that are more on the awareness level and some ads that are really more on the almost lead gen level on download the report. And some that are like more on the awareness, but they all come together in one campaign. That's from an awareness perspective and a brand perspective is to build the overall Sinch brand and the association of Sinch and customer communications and customer connection, how Sinch help brands deliver better customer experience. So that's the story we're trying to push. The second campaign we're doing and we're working on now, we have a big business objective at Sinch, which is to be known for a certain product, which is called RCS. RCS basically like rich messaging. And there's a big kind of news to it, which is that it's been part of like Google have enabled RCS for a long time, but never Apple. And Apple is finally going to enable it. So that opened the market and opened the reach. There's a big kind of like timely matter to this. And we need to be the voice of this. So a brand is going to like help being very much focused on this one product and or offering for that in RCS, right? Which is, rich messaging. So then we'll do a brand campaign around that. So it's like way more product focused. But I think every time when we work on those brand campaigns or that integrated campaign, we go from, okay, what are the products that we want to push? They're hero products. So what is the product and the features? And what is the story around this product? And how does that translate into probably a bigger story that is the brand story? But all the pieces need to connect, right? Like it needs to go from product to brand, because you ultimately, brand does the same thing as like every other marketing tactics, which is to drive demand, drive business, drive pipeline, right? Like we deliver on the revenue. It's not just make ourselves look pretty. Like the end goal is marketing, right? We're selling. It's just not in the same way as a seller. But I think it's the same with brand. And I think a lot of times people disconnect performance and brand and demand and brand. Yes. Oh, brand is this. You don't really care about delivering it. It's like, no, we care. We care. Yeah. It's just that like we start a bit earlier. So it's the link is not as direct, right? You cannot put an ad and see, okay, people are going to buy. So it takes a bit more time, but I think the goal is still the same. And the more you build your brand, the more it's known, the easier it is to sell.
Yeah. Do you also focus on brand in front of prospects and customers? Obviously prospects, and you want to get in front of your audience and your ICP, but are you also focused on keeping that brand and strengthening it amongst customers?
Yes and no. I will say every campaign we do will have a kind of customer aspect, because we're a global brand team. We deliver global campaign kit to the regions because we're a pretty big marketing team. So we have a regional team. They are way closer to the customers. So they are the one that are like implementing, and they're way closer to their market. So usually they will take the campaigns, but also they will implement within customer marketing. The other example is customer stories, right? Like we'll work with the local team where they need to source the clients and they need to like source those stories in a way. And then we'll work with them to make the story happen. But they are the one that know the customers better and all those markets. Our team is like more global. And in that case, we do like the execution seems maybe not the right word, but like we make what would be maybe a boring story, like create some magic around it.
Yeah. I mean, like this, you were talking about the RCS piece, right? So it's this technical thing that's happening that's really translated into an opportunity that your customers need to capitalize on, and you can guide them to that. So you're connecting that like big technical update that might be over some of their heads, and you're explaining how this is an opportunity and how they should capitalize on it.
Exactly. And we do that for the customers and for the rest of the market that have maybe not even embraced messaging. Because a lot of companies that have done SMS and like messaging marketing, they will probably understand. But there's now a much better opportunity for more companies to do messaging marketing because they making it more interactive. Like the main difference from a technical point of view is that, well, everyone knows what a text is, right? And you do SMS, you send like this short copy text with your phone. With RCS, you're able to send carousel images, a video, like you can have a two-way conversation directly on your phone without going to a different app or a different chatbot. You can do that all in the phone. Yeah.
Very
so it's
cool.
like some of the WhatsApp experience, I think, but directly in your. So it's pretty good. It's pretty cool. And what you can do with it is pretty cool because it's more engaging. So for brands, it's definitely a good opportunity. But how do you explain that? You first need to create excitement about it. You first need to show, look how cool it can be, and like put that in the face before you then educate, before you get them to understand what it can do for them. But
So you show it, you get excitement, you generate the excitement, and then you educate them on what this really means and how. And then you get them like closer into learning more details of how they can execute. Interesting. Yeah, exactly. I'm an Android girl, so I feel like I've had RCS, like I see it say we're switching from LC, whatever the other one is, to RCS in my chats with people. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but cool.
And it's like this, this kind of capability to do like richer experience on the phone. And
so interesting.
I think it's quite fun. I discovered a lot about tech since I've been at Sinch, but it's
we end up the tech that we need to end up learning in B2B marketing because we have to know our product, right? So it's like all the nitty-gritty details so that we can translate it and make it approachable.
Yeah.
So fun. So you work with teams though, right? Because working on brand and then obviously still focused on pipeline, as you mentioned. How do you communicate and align with all of the other marketing teams that work with you or right next to you?
Yeah, we try to work closely with all the teams, but obviously there's some teams we work even closer with. I will say product marketing. We're very tight with product marketing because there's a whole part that is the foundation of the brand, which is like all of the messaging, narrative, like positioning, and from a brand perspective to a product perspective and how they connect. And if you do a brand campaign, especially if it's more product focused, you need to translate your product feature into like benefits and into kind of emotional benefits. So we work quite closely with the product marketing team. We work a lot with the regions. So the regional teams are like the one that are on the field. So they will do a lot of events. So events in the field. And again, events are both lead gen or demand gen and brand. So we do a lot of the creative for them and a lot of the messaging for these events. And then they do a lot of the activation. And then we work with the ABM or performance team because they basically use, promote, manage all the ads and all the, we give them the fuel and they do the activation and then they report back so that we can track some of the campaigns and see how the campaign is working, how the content is working. And they are the expert. Like I don't have, and I think it depends from one company to another, but in my team, I don't have like performance marketer or someone that manage the channels and the distribution. Yeah. Also because it's done by countries. So it's like give to them and then they manage it. They do the targeting, they do the optimization, and then they report back. And so sometimes it's complex because we're a larger team, but
it's fascinating just to see, like you said, every company is so different. I wish there needs to be a show or some course that's like all about different org structures and how they work. 'Cause it's just fascinating to me to see how different companies work. And then it depends on the people that are in those positions, right? And what skills they bring. It's just fascinating.
I honestly think that it's one of the hardest part of the job, which is to put together the best possible team. And even within my team, so my team is new. We reorged at Sinch in January. And so the team in the way it is today came together in January. And then it's been 6 months. And after 6 months, I had to put an org together without knowing everybody because we grew through a lot of acquisitions. So you like think you know what they're doing and you put people together. And then obviously, as they work together, not everything works. So you probably need to like shift things. And I'm in that stage right now and I find it really hard because I get the theory behind it. And I don't know what you think about that. Actually, that's a good like I don't know if EOS and like how to do like team structure, put the right seat before you put the people into it, right? So you think
which
about
is
your
very
org.
hard for me to do.
Exactly. But also, it's like, put the right seat and think at who are the right seat you would want. And I'm like, that's working theory. But when you have a lot of people already there, you're not going to fire everybody and just rehire, right, based on those seats. And some people have multiple skills and not everything is like a very small box, right? Someone might be able to do this and that.
Yes.
And
or the potential we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's tricky, but I'm in there right now. Like I've been thinking a lot about org structure recently. Yeah. Because I know we have team structure challenges and I want to change, but I'm like, there's not a one size fit all.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that I forget if I was talking to you and Ashley Faust about this, but it's always been a struggle for me to create an org structure or a team and then fit people in and hire. I just can't take people out of the equation. I look at the team and then what we can fit into. So I've heard both sides of this, and I guess it leans more towards you're supposed to figure out what you need and then fill in the people. I just can't change my brain to remove the people that we already have.
I know, exactly. I find it really hard too. And you know what you know, right? So you also know that Jane and Bill don't really work well together. So in theory, like Jane will be Bill's manager, but this is going to create such a big mess that you cannot do that. And let's be ideal. And they could be both great, not just like great at working together. So I think there's so much things you need to consider. It's very tricky. I feel like that's one of the hardest things as a manager,
especially a manager with high EQ, which you obviously have, Gwen. So because then you just think about every aspect, like the fact that you're thinking about Jane and Bill working well together or not, right? Like it's not this cold, here's a chart, this is what we need because this is what I've done before, or what all the experts say should be the org structure, and then fitting people in. You take a warm approach.
I don't know what's the good way to do it. I feel like we'll do soon like a pavilion class. I know you mentioned one of the pavilion class you in. Another one soon that is about like performing teams.
Cool.
And, I signed up for that one because I think I don't know if they'll talk about org structure, but at least how you making sure your team is performing. I think that's a great topic we learn to be marketers, but we rarely learn to be good managers. I think a lot of being a good manager is self-taught. And so for the better...
Through the experience itself. Yeah, exactly. So, like we take management classes in school, but it's not management of people. You don't really learn that side of... Maybe you do nowadays. I don't know.
I don't know. But I feel like that's such an important thing. I'm like, let's learn to be a better manager. Right?
Agreed. So Sinch has gone through a bunch of acquisitions. You've grown exponentially in the few years that you've been there. Can you walk us through just the challenges of that and any kind of tips for anybody that's going through acquisitions on either side, or restructures, reorgs, all of that? Like you've gone through a ton of changes. So how has that impacted you at high level, however you want to go deep? And then any advice from having gone through that successfully?
Yeah, I think that probably having an agency background helped me as well in that, because when you're agency, you change a lot and you lose clients, you win clients, and you need to relearn and start over. So I feel in a way, the advice or the mindset is the most important thing. And it's realizing that you will never have all the information and things will always be in movement. Things will always be changing, right? Like we work in tech, things change all the time. And you don't know what next month is going to be like, right? You don't know if COVID happened or like sales didn't reach or you didn't reach sales target, and all of a sudden like everything needs to change and your big, beautiful strategy that you planned 6 months ago is out because you cannot execute. Or they tell you like, you need to do the same with half the team. It has happened to like everybody. So I think it's a mindset of learning to continue to move forward and with the uncertainty, right? Like nothing is certain, but you still need to continue to move forward. And you need to like make decision without having all the information. And I think that capacity on like, it's a bit of a muscle. I feel like that you need to work, like being able to make those decisions no matter what, and make them with the information you have at the time, because you'll never have all of it. And embracing that change and understanding that like everybody in a company can be a driver of the change is not just like expectation of what comes from leadership. And we see that a lot as younger or early in careers, right? It's like the expectation that everything is going to be told to me to do a certain way. And I think understanding that no one really knows what they're doing exactly in the way it is. And that's true for like your CMO and your CEO. And they've never had that exact same role and be in that exact same situation before. So they don't know, they might know more than you, but they don't know everything, right? Like there's, I think, expectation that it needs to be figured out by management. And it's like, well, not really. A lot of it, and a lot of successful companies come from like people that take the risk and drive the change at every level. And I think it's an important mindset to navigate change and uncertainty and just go with the flow and don't get hung up on what was, Like it's, yeah.
If you have teammates, because I've seen this before in the past companies that have gone through acquisitions, right? There's always, it's like you said, it's not just from management. I think leadership plays a major role, but each person, especially your peers, can impact how successful an acquisition or a merger is.
Yeah.
How do you, if there's someone on your team, not that this has happened, but if there's someone on your team that is stuck in the old way they were doing things or bringing a little bit of a toxic environment, how do you address that? And any advice to change that attitude?
I was going to say they need to get out. No, I'm just kidding.
That org chart comes out.
I think and with acquisition, it's very common that like the people you acquired, right, are resistant and they feel in their own way, and not everyone go as fast, right? I think some people will take more time than others. So I think it's like the patience, and if it's a peer, right, like I think everything to me can be solved as like open dialogue and having discussion. And I think being honest about it. Also understanding that these are companies, right? Yes, we get attached. We get attached to the company we were at and we get acquired. But it's still the job you're doing, and it's okay. You can redo it for something else. Think about what is next, right? Like rather than let go of the past and what was. I think like people that don't want, that get, like you say, a bit toxic is because they stay stuck in the old way and they don't want to change. There's no going back. It's happening. So you just need to move with it, because if you don't, you're not going to be part of the train. So I think it's like open discussion and open dialogues and having this way of trying to get that person convinced. And is really they're not. I was joking, but it's also the truth. Maybe this is not their place anymore. Right? Like maybe they're just not able to embrace the future of the company. And if they're not, then they shouldn't stay. They should find something else for themselves, because it's going to make them highly unhappy, because things are never going to go back to the way it was. I think it's maybe something to think about for ourselves. When we get change can be so frustrating, right? I get frustrated. Like we reorg several times, and sometimes I will be happy with the change that came my way, and sometimes I will not, because I will lose people, or we lose part of my scope, and I will be like upset at first. But I'm like, this isn't about me. This is about me. This is what's good about the company, and I love this that I think came from Amazon values, which was like disagree and commit, on this idea of you make your point, you might not agree with it, but once the decision is made, you just have to go with it, whether you liked it or not. And you can say, I told you, but you can still you still need to go with the decision that was made by the group or your boss, right? Like there's no, you can fight it a little bit because you need to get your voice heard for sure. Yeah. But then you need to accept and then do your best to make that decision successful. Yeah. Which is the thing that will make you grow in your career.
Yes. You have such a healthy mindset on this, Gwen. It's just it's refreshing, right? Like I need to train my brain to be even more like yours. Like just something that everything can be solved with open dialogue. Beautiful sentence there. Like so true. If you have that mindset with your team, you can discuss things. And maybe the solution, to your point, is that person is no longer a fit and it's mutually beneficial to part ways. And you have that open discussion. Yeah. But it's
tough, right? I'm not going to say it's easy, right? It's difficult. And of course, it's easy to talk about it on the podcast. It's not as easy in real life. But I do feel like when there is a problem within the team as well, right? As a manager, you get people come to you from one side and you're like, okay, you guys stay, right? It's like children, right?
Yeah, it is. I often say half of our job as managers, this is probably outside of marketing too, is being a therapist. I feel like this is very subjective and not data driven, but I feel like marketing people come to us from other teams too for that therapy. So we just tend to get more of that throughout the company for some reason. I've always had that experience.
Maybe we got to
be able to handle.
Naturally, in marketers, we are I want to think maybe caring about the people, because in a way even our job is influencing people, right? So there's a big part of what we do, which is about the people, right? So I think we probably have that mindset of doing it internally as well.
Yeah. I love also what you said about there's a time and place for you to disagree. So you said disagree and commit. I remember hearing that from Amazon. But so you should disagree and voice your opinion. It's not saying just go with it and keep your mouth closed, but there's a time and a place. And at some point you have to stop, because otherwise you're just turning into the complainer. You're not being proactive and helpful and offering a strong opinion. You are complaining.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. And I've learned that by experience, right? Like on being frustrated, not agreeing with decision, being that grumpy person. And as I'm a pretty emotional person, it's really easy to see when I'm in a good mood and not in a good mood, and when I agree and don't agree. So I know if I'm not happy with the decision.
Yeah, on our faces.
Exactly. But then I need to not stay stuck in that. So I've worked on myself to be like, okay, it's fine. I was upset. I will move on and get to the best of what I can do with this new decision, because it's this stuff we don't control. And when the decision is made higher than you, it's said it 3 times. Okay, time to let it go.
Yeah. There's that just separation, like you noted too, like that we have to have between us and the company we're working for. If it's not ours, we are not the founders, then we have to have that separation for just mental health.
I know, it's tough, right? Like we get highly emotional with our jobs. I remember people telling me, it's just a job. I know, but I care.
Such a big portion of our life.
Yeah, and we care, right? So because we care, we get upset. But at the same time, I feel like it's important for our own sanity to be able to detach a bit, or at least find the good side into it.
Exactly. I wonder if this will be foreshadowing of my last question. I'm curious if you could go back in time to younger Gwen, just starting out in the agency world in France. What would you share with her now, knowing all that you know now and everything you've experienced?
Yeah, I think like part of that discussion we just had, for sure. I've always been very opinionated and probably voicing my opinions and wearing my emotions on my face. So I think that always been there. So I feel like this idea of just go with the flow maybe a bit more and being a bit more flexible. But other than that, I think be your own self-advocate, I think, and being visible in a company and rooting for yourself is also advice I will give to like younger self or younger marketers. Because I feel like it's one thing to do the job well. It's another to get people to notice it. And sometimes I see people that are like extremely talented, but that no one really noticed because they're like so quiet or never. And it's not bragging, right? Like it's not really bragging. It's making sure your work is visible and that your own like self-advocate. I think that's an important skill that like, especially us as women, I think not the best at. And sometimes we will be like so frustrated because, again, Bill, we were talking about it.
Bill.
He's really good at promoting himself, but I know he doesn't do the job that well or not as well as me. And like, why is he promoted? So I think that's what I will say. Oh, yeah. I've got a little guest with me.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Hi.
Okay.
Hi. So
we're
cute.
Recording. Maybe you shouldn't stay.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll finish, okay?
So cute. Tell him he's going to be famous on our podcast now.
You're going to be on a podcast.
I'm totally keeping this in. So cute. I love that. Basically, this is my Zoom calls all the time. Like Miles would come in the background.
Came back from school and I did say, hey, I'll be on the podcast. So maybe, and it's okay. He comes to a lot of calls. But I think like being an advocate for yourself, obviously you need to do the work, but then be the voice of that work and be proud of what you're doing. I think like some people do that very well and they are usually the one that like, get seen and promoted. So I think if you want to grow in your career, like you need to be seen.
Yes, that's such an important distinction. I'm so glad you said this. It's one thing, I wrote this down verbatim. It's one thing to do the job well. It's another to get people to notice it. It's so true. This is like a clapping kind of statement, especially for women, because it's something I don't like. I think at least myself, I know I don't think about. It comes second, right? I want to drive performance. I want to see results. I want to see success. And I'm looking at what I'm looking at. I'm like, oh, they know what's going on. I'm not great at communicating that. It's something I'm always working on. Great.
Yeah, and internal comm, I know it's such a hard part of the marketing job because like we don't have time. We have so much stuff we need to do. We don't have time. But I feel like yeah, marketers need to own this as well. And there's definitely a lot of projects where you do need that to happen. Like when you change the brand, when you change like the positioning, when you're like, you do need to make sure that that's understood within the rest of the company. So the internal comm piece and ultimately getting everyone on board with what marketing is doing will make marketing more successful, because a big part is also social, right? Like in how you get all of the employees being your ambassadors on social.
Yes.
You need to educate them on what you're doing, why they should do it. I think there's a lot of like internal education that needs to happen that is really hard to do. I think it's hard. It's easier maybe when the company is smaller, but overall it's not an easy one.
So true. We can wrap up. I'll let you go be with Simon. How old is he, Gwen?
He's 8.
Aw, so cute.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gwen, so much for joining us. I know we could chat for hours and hours about like just extracting from your brain all about brand. I'm sure I will have you back again one day, maybe on the round table or something if I get those back up and running. But thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing so much insight on brand and your journey and leadership, a lot there too. So thank you, Gwen.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a great discussion. And yeah, I'll be back anytime.
Yay, so fun. All right, thank you everybody for listening. Connect with Gwen. Best place is on LinkedIn, I presume?
Yes.
Yes. If you don't follow Gwen, you are in for a treat. She shares really great insight. And I always bookmark her Sinch, her team's examples and what they're doing because it's beautiful and really smart. So you are in for a treat. Follow her on LinkedIn, connect with her on LinkedIn, DM her and tell her you love the episode, and then give us a 5-star review and rating so we get in front of more people. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.